I'm going to give a little tutorial on how to solve the word problems in Unit 3.4 of the Singapore Math Book, Course 1A. And I'm going to start with problem number 26. I'm going to read the problem first. Mervyn had some cartons of milk. He sold 2/5 of the cartons of milk in the morning. He then sold 3/4 of the remainder in the afternoon. 24 more cartons of milk were sold in the afternoon than in the morning. How many cartons of milk did Mervyn have at first? Now, the most important thing to understand is that the two fractions which are given to you in this problem are not really comparable. They cannot be added together because they are not fractions of the same total. Now, a normal sixth grader intuitively will want to add those fractions together and try and solve the problem that way, and that will not work because obviously you will have a number that is greater than 1, and you will come out with an answer that he sold more cartons of milk than he started with. So that's impossible. And the reason that doesn't work is that the 2/5 refers to 2/5 of the cartons that he started with, the total. The 3/4 is 3/4 of a completely different number. It's the remainder of what he had after he sold 2/5. So we have to find a way to get those fractions so that they're both representing fractions of the same number, which the most, convenient and obvious way to do that is to make them both fractions of the total number of cartons of milk he started with. Now, there's a couple of ways of doing that I can show, and the first and the most important is the one that they teach in school, and that technique you should be able to use to solve all of the problems because that's the one they're teaching. So the technique that they're teaching in school is to create a diagram where you've broken the total, the largest amount, in this case, the number of cartons of milk he started with, and you break it into a certain number of units. And the units, you don't know how many cartons there are in each unit, but you can easily figure that out at the end. Now, the question, of course, comes up, how do we decide how many units to break the total into? And the answer is that we look at the denominators of our two fractions and we multiply them together. So we have 2/5 and 3/4. The denominators are 5 and 4. And so we're going to have to create a diagram with 20 units in order to solve this problem. So I'm just going to draw my diagram over here of 20 units. And that is going to represent the starting amount of cartons. That's 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Now, this is the number of cartons. Now remember, each box is not a carton. Each box is a unit of cartons. Could be 1, could be 2, could be 5, we don't know. But we know that we need to break our total number of cartons down into 20 segments. He sold 2/5 of the cartons of milk in the morning. So remember that we have 20 cartons or 20 units of cartons. He sold 2/5 of the cartons, therefore he sold 2/5 of these units. 1/5 of 20 is 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These are the ones he sold 8 of the 20 units in the morning. That leaves us with 12 because we started out with 20. So we know he sold 3/4 of the remainder in the afternoon. 3/4 of 12 is 9. So now we're going to get rid of this 12. and we're going to put 9, and then 3 are left. Now, it's very important that we label so we don't forget which number is which. These are sold in the morning, sold in the afternoon, and left unsold. And now we know that these are not cartons. We know that these are like each one of these units is a certain number of cartons. How are we going to figure out how many cartons of milk are in each of these blocks, each of these 20 blocks? Well, this is where the last sentence comes in. 24 more cartons of milk were sold in the afternoon than in the morning. So we have 8 in the morning, 9 in the afternoon. So we know that 1 more unit was sold in the afternoon than in the morning. And remember that each of these is a unit, not a carton. 1 more unit equals 24 cartons. So they actually make it pretty easy for you. And right there, you know how many cartons of milk are in a unit. 9 in the afternoon, 8 in the morning. That means 1 more unit was sold in the afternoon and in the morning, which is 24 more cartons. How many cartons of milk did Mervyn have at first? This is the other thing. It would be a real shame if you figured out everything and you did all the math correctly and you didn't read the final question. So you wrote how many cartons of milk were left at the end. 6th graders, for some reason, do this a lot. They get everything right and then they blow it right at the end. So tell your kid, be sure you're answering the question that they are asking. How many cartons of milk did Mervyn have at first? So 1 unit, 24 cartons. 20 units is what he had at first. 20 times 24 equals 480 cartons, and that is the answer. Now, you could stop right there and don't confuse yourself by trying to learn another method, because this is what they taught you. The only problem with this is that you have to make a diagram with a lot of boxes. And that's okay if it's 20, maybe even okay if it's 30, but you might end up getting a problem someday where you had to make like 150. So this is not going to work too well when you run into that kind of problem. So I'm just going to show another way of doing it where you don't have to make such a complicated diagram. So I'm going to erase this one. And we're going to start the other one. Mervyn had some cartons of milk. So now we're going to make a diagram which has just 2 pieces. This is all the cartons. This is the total that he started with. This is the amount that he sold in the morning. And this is the remainder. It's very important that as soon as you decide that you have a remainder, you don't leave it as an unknown. You have to put in the fraction that it is to keep that straight. So 2/5 morning, which means that 3/5 are left, because 2/5 plus 3/5 equals 1. Then we're going to divide the remainder over here. And the remainder is the 3/5. We're going to, let me write that instead at the top. Now, he sells 3/4 of this one in the afternoon. And he has 1/4 of the remainder that is left. And remember, these are fractions, of different totals. You cannot really compare these fractions. But if you want to know how many he sold in the afternoon in terms of the total, he's selling 3/4 of 3/5, because the remainder is 3/5 of the total. In the afternoon, he sells 3/4 of the remainder. And when you have 3/4 of 3/5, that's the same thing as 3/4 times 3/5. And that equals 9/20. Then you want to compare that to the number of cartons of milk that were sold in the morning, 2/5. But we want to express it with the same denominator. So 2/5 equals 8/20. So you have 9/20 were sold in the afternoon, and 8/20 were sold in the morning. So now you see the difference between those is 1/20. 1/20 of the total equals 24, and you end up with the same answer, of course, 480. So if you don't want to make a big long diagram, you can do this. You just have to remember the whole idea is when you take a fraction of a fraction, you're multiplying the fractions. 3/4 of 3/5 is 9/20. So 9/20 sold in the afternoon, 8/20 sold in the morning. The difference between them is 1/20. That's 24. 1/20. If 24 is 1/20 of a number, that number is 24 times 20, 480. So that's the end for problem number 26.